Hey there, everybody. I'm Joshua Hodges, and welcome to Channel 3. Okay, so many of you by now, I'm sure, are aware of Ryan Newman's recent accident. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, I want to address some changes coming to this channel. So when I launched this channel, it was supposed to be about amusement parks and motorsports. I was going to wait for the go-ahead from my employer, Six Flags New England, because I didn't want to upload any videos that might get me fired. And so in the meantime, I was supposed to just stick with motorsports. The problem is I didn't want to make it just about NASCAR because I wanted to try and reach out to a larger audience. So I wanted to focus on IMSA, Supercross, Indy, etc. Unfortunately, that is too many motorsports for me to follow. I would theoretically have had to juggle seven different series. I would have had to juggle the ARCA series. I would have had to juggle the IndyCar series. I would have had to juggle the WeatherTech series. I would have had to juggle Supercross on top of NASCAR's Big Three Touring series. So it's just too much for me to. It was just too much for me to handle, and so that's why this channel hasn't been dead, but it's been inactive. I mean, the only videos I've posted so far have been about bombshells out of the truck series. Well, I'm going to change that effective immediately. The reason is twofold. One, I think Ryan Newman's recent accident deserves a closer look of the aftermath coming forward. Again, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But the other reason that there are major changes coming forward, effective immediately, Six Flags New England has just given me the green light to do behind-the-scenes stories from working at the amusement parks. Not just about Six Flags, but amusement parks in general. Yes, my stories are specific to Six Flags, but I'm sure there are many amusement park workers who have these stories to share from their amusement parks. I know, Sir Willow, you are one of them. I'm looking at you for feedback. Okay, so now that we've got all that squared away, let's talk about speed weeks in general before we focus in on Newman. So we had the Daytona ARCA 200. Michael Self won the race, and Hailie Deegan, the way she was celebrating after her runner-up finish, you would think that she had won the race. Yes, there were crashes. Yes, there were cautions, but they were considerably mild, at least to my judgment. And then on Sunday, the 9th, you had the Busch Clash. I can't understand why Busch Beer is back sponsoring auto racing, because alcohol sponsoring motorsports, that has a connection to, at least if you'll allow me to go for the joke here, that makes me think about drinking and driving. You don't drink and drive. You're supposed to drive and then drink. Or just get a designated driver. That's another video for another day. But the Busch Clash, everybody was saying it was a terrible race in the aftermath. I know that Eric Estep called it the ugliest race he had ever watched. David Land said that NASCAR has ruined the Clash. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have to say, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm not the iceberg, but let me just play devil's advocate here. Personally, I thought it was hysterical seeing only 5 cars finish the race, and the other 13 of them were all crashed out. I'm not saying that I enjoyed watching the crashes themselves. What I enjoyed was that only 5 cars were left. That was quintessential all-star racing. It was like you could not write that into a movie if you tried. Like, Ricky Bobby's got nothing on that. And on top of all that, the winner, Eric Jones, I was rooting for Austin Dillon because I thought it would be funny if the only car without a scratch and he had to win the race. But no, here comes Denny Hamlin, who's a lap down, pushing Eric Jones to the win, and Eric Jones has a mangled front end, so that was even more funny. I don't see what everybody took issue with the end result of the Clash, as far as the number of cars on the track is concerned. I just thought it was fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie. jump ahead to the duels. And we have Joey Logano winning the first duel, and we have William Byron winning the second duel. And even though it doesn't count towards the record books, as far as I'm concerned, this was Byron's first career Cup Series win. Yes, I know people are going to say, but no, he hasn't won a real race. Just because they're qualifying races doesn't mean they're not real races. Because the qualifying races for the Daytona 500 are marketed as a feature in and of themselves. So from a marketing standpoint and from a publicity standpoint, William Byron has won his first career win. Friday night, Truck Series race, and Ty Majeski is upside down and on fire. I knew immediately that he was okay because I saw him trying to push the window net out of the way, but of course, since his truck is upside down, the window net just keeps flopping back into the up position. I knew he was okay because and then here comes one of the craziest finishes to the end of the race. I'll be honest with you, I was rooting for Jordan Anderson to win that race. I'm happy for Grant Enfinger, but I kind of wish Jordan Anderson had won that race because he was a true underdog. He still is a true underdog because he was one of the youngest owner drivers in NASCAR history. And then you have the NASCAR Racing Experience 300 on Saturday in the Xfinity Series. And once again, a junior motorsports car. This time, Noah Gragson has taken the win. I didn't watch it on TV. I listened to it on the radio because there was something wrong with my television. But I heard all the commotion on the radio, and I knew it was wild. And there was a big one towards the end of the race, and I was not a happy guy. And there were two big ones in the Daytona 500 itself. And again, I was not a happy guy. I am never a happy guy when we get the big one because it slows down the race. Sometimes it stops the race altogether. And oftentimes it takes out my favorite driver. That's what happened last year to William Byron. He was my pick to win the Daytona 500, and he was at the front end of the big one, and yet he got caught up in it. And my sentiments exactly to Mike Joy, who said, well, that ruined everything. Now on to the big story of the week. For the uninitiated, if there are any left, Ryan Newman was leading the race, and Ryan Blaney was chasing or pushing Denny Hamlin. And then at the last minute, Blaney dive bombs underneath Newman to try and push Newman to the win. But he hooks his bumper off center. Around goes Newman, scrapes the outside retaining wall, and because he's going sideways at about 200 miles an hour, his car goes upside down. And then, now to my point of view, he was in the air when he took the next hit, but he might have been on the ground. I wasn't sure. Either way, he gets hit upside down in the driver's side window by an oncoming Corey LaJoie who has absolutely nowhere to go. I didn't notice because I was paying attention to the battle for the win, which was at the very last second taken by Hamlin. I thought it was going to be Blaney that won the 500 because I was rooting for him this entire time. And then we cut to a shot of Ryan Newman's car, which is upside down, on fire, and leaking fuel. The worst part is that his window net was on the pavement. It was impossible for him to signal that he was okay with the window net because the window was on the pavement. It was like at a lopsided angle. We find out later that he was unresponsive on the radio, and that's why he was extricated. And meanwhile, Hamlin is doing his burnout because he can't hear through his helmet that Newman's unconscious because he doesn't have his helmet on. That's when, and around about this time, they put up black screens to shield the fans from seeing the extrication. And then I find out later that the medics even told the press to leave the area. And then he was airlifted directly to Halifax Hospital. Now, when someone is in a crash at a NASCAR race, or at an IndyCar race for that matter, the standard protocol is to take them to the infield hospital and then, if necessary, take them to the area hospital. On rare occasions, this is generally only if it's very bad or if the driver is... On rare occasions, they will elect to take the driver directly to a local hospital. And usually when this happens, it's a bad sign. And what shock I had when I found out that Ryan Newman was alive and his injuries were not life-threatening. That in and of itself was a shock for me. And then come yesterday, and then come Tuesday, he's talking with doctors, and he's walking around the hospital with his daughters. And then yesterday, he gets released from the hospital, walking out under his own power with no walker. I'm going to be honest with you. Not only does that tell something about how much safety has come around in auto racing, especially in NASCAR, but it also goes to show you that no matter what you do to push safety to its absolute limits, that is to say, no matter what kind of seatbelts you put in, what kind of head and neck restraints, what kind of helmets, what kind of roll cages you put in, what kind of restrictor plates, what kind of anything you do to make the cars safer to drive, there's always going to be that inherent risk of a major injury or fatality. I mean, in the past decade, off the top of my head, we lost Dan Weldon. We lost Justin Wilson. We almost lost Robert Wickens. And those were IndyCar alone. But in NASCAR even, Kyle Busch's racing career could have been ended. Austin Dillon, it's a miracle he walked away from that one. And now, Ryan Newman, I dare say it's a miracle that he's even alive. Just to be clear, my thoughts and my prayers and my hopes go out to Ryan Newman and his family, and I wish him a reasonably speedy recovery. I say reasonably speedy because I don't want him stepping into a race car until he has clearance from his doctors all the way, 100%. Because if he steps into a race car prematurely and crashes again, his racing career could be over. And I don't want that to happen to him. Because he's a very underappreciated driver. He had the most wins in the 2003 season. A lot of people think that under a chase system or a playoff system, he would have been a contender for that championship. And in 2014, if it hadn't been for Kevin Harvick, if one of the non-playoff 4 drivers had won the race and Newman had come in second, he would have been the second winless champion in all of NASCAR history. That didn't happen, of course, till 2018 with Matt Crafton, but that's another video. In fact, that's a previous video. And mind you, Ryan Newman is officially scored 9th at the finish of the Daytona 500. That's a pretty good finish considering the big wreck he had. Now, I'm not sure how many races he's going to miss or how many races Ross Chastain will be racing in his place. And by the way, good luck, Ross. I hope you win a race in the Cup Series. It's about time. I wish you could have gotten a chance less morbid than this one. With that being said, knowing NASCAR and what they did for Kyle Busch in 2015, They're probably going to grant Ryan Newman a medical waiver once he comes back and allow him into the playoffs as long as he wins at least one race and makes it into the top 30 in non-playoff points. If that happens, I am going to be rooting for Ryan Newman to win the championship this season. And I know all of you are telling me that Kyle Busch didn't deserve that championship in 2015. Yes, he did, but that's another video for another day. So with that being said, I'm Joshua Hodges signing off again for Channel 3. Be sure to drop a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to me. And if motorsports or amusement parks are not for you, click the link in the description to go to my main channel or Channel 2.